Now, all that literally means samskara. And these samskaras, they purify, they uplift, and guide us through all our stages of life. In fact, when we finish these 16 samskaras, it will feel like a life well lived, as a matter of fact. And it inspires a certain way of life, a dharmic way of life, and it points to evolution within through these 16 samskaras. As I said, sam plus kr plus gai dhatu, gai pratyaya becomes samskara. It means it's something that came out of punaf prayatna, right? It came out of a lot of special effort. It came out of anubhava, and the samskaras, they, because having done this, they leave a latent and potent impressions that awaken when the right situations are created. That's why we call them the purva janma samskaras. Some refinement that could have happened at an earlier janma awakens at the right time. So they leave certain impressions within ourselves, and that leads us to moksha. So it shapes our personality, it defines our value system, and it builds a certain identity, thereby a character, right from our childhood. And definitely through these spiraling refinement model, jati, ayuhu, bhoga, right? The jati, ayu, and bhoga, having gone through this, having born in this particular species, jantunam nara janma durlabhamataha, says Adi Shankara Bhagavad Gita. So having born in this species, having an extensive lifespan where we can witness all the 16 samskaras, allows us to have a certain fulfilling experience and thereby evolve within. And thereby it prepares us for higher spiritual pursuits. And within these samskaras, the Panchamaha Yajnas are fully intertwined. The Brahma Yajna, Deva Yajna, Pitri Yajna, Bhuta Yajna, and Manushya Yajna. These are completely intertwined within the scope of these samskaras that we do throughout. And if you see, Yajna means Yajantithi Yajna, that which is offered, right, is Yajna. If you see this, the Brahma Yajna, the fundamental Brahma Yajna that we can do is remember the Vakyas that have come from Brahma. That the Veda Vakyas, Veda Mahavakyas. And thereby reading the scriptures. Even now, if you see many traditions, somewhere down the line, right, they understood that the 15th chapter. Have you seen this tradition that many people chant the 15th chapter before lunch in various ashramas? This tradition, right, of chanting the 15th chapter, it is considered the Paraguhya of the Vedas, the 15th chapter, right? Purushottama Yoga. Thereby, we created a system where 15th chapter, if we chant, is equivalent to Veda Sara and doesn't apply to any linga, no restrictions. So any jati, bheda, no restrictions. So you can chant the 15th chapter, which is equivalent to the Shruti in itself, Shruti Vakyas. And then we have our Bhojana. So that we have completed the Brahma Yajna, Nitya, and then we have our Bhojana. In fact, in our ashrama, we follow this. Our children, we all chant. And then we have our Bhojana. Similarly, Deva Yajna is Nitya Puja, Nitya Puraskara. This helps us connect and offer towards the Devatas. The Pitri Yajna is towards our ancestors. In fact, the Pitru Paksha is happening now. It's a very, very auspicious time. We will see about that. Similarly, the Bhuta Yajna, right, towards other living beings, and then Manushya Yajna. In fact, right when if you look at the traditional stove here, the chulas here, the mud chulas here at the ashram, right in front of the chula, morning what you first do, you do the cow dung based lepanam, and then you draw using the rice powder a rangoli. Thereby, first you complete your bhuta yajna and then start cooking, which is for manusha yajna. So all this is very carefully followed in the Indian tradition. In fact, all these are integrated every day, thereby integrated into every samskaras as well. So now we are seeing the Pitru Paksha happening. This Paksha, though it is considered a 16-day lunar period, because you are, for the first time, you are taking Pratipada, right? And then going to Mahalaya Ammasya, and then a day after that also, a certain ritual is followed. So the Bhadrapada month, right, or the Ashwini month, depending on if you are in the Amanta or the Purnimanta system. And the Sukshma Sharira of the three preceding generations of one ancestors, they reside in the Pitruloka. It is considered in our Indian tradition. It is considered as a realm, a physical realm between the heaven and the earth. And we look at Yama as the presiding deity or the governing deity of this Pitruloka. And only for the three generations, the Shraddha rites are given, and in which Yama plays a significant role. And in the Pitru Paksha, prayers are offered to bring upon moksha for both the ancestors and for those who are performing the rituals as well. What also is considered in the Indian tradition is that, in fact, Prati Amavasya, when we offer the Pitru Shraddha rites, in the Pitruloka, one Paksha is considered day and one Paksha is considered night. The Shukla Paksha is considered as the day and the Krishna Paksha is considered as night. Thereby, though we, in our Loka, though every Amavasya we do the Shraddha, for the Pitrus in the Pitru Loka, it is like every day something has been offered to them. This particular Paksha is very, very special because it is considered in the mystical understanding that the Loka comes in, when we all rotate around the universe, in this period, the Loka is very accessible, comes closer to us, to the Bhuloka. And it's not, like a hemispherical space where alone, right? Bhuloka is, occupied by us even when we are sleeping, even when we don't cognize this hemispherical, region, right? Like that, the Pitraloka, it's considered that this Paksha, where they are very, very accessible, and it is a period of tapasya and moksha karaka for even the Pitrus. We see this in, I think, even way back in the Rig Veda, right? There is the Pitru Sukta in the Rig Veda. If you see, it says Pitaraha Somayaha in that Rig Veda Pitru Sukta. Similarly, in Manusmriti, in Mahabharata Anushasana Parva, be it in Garuda Purana, all these have explained the greatness of the Pitru Paksha, right? In fact, there is a big, argument in Mahabharata. Argument is in discussion that Karna, that after his death, he went to heaven but received gold and jewels instead of Pakshana, food there, right? And when he asked why to Yama, Yama told him that he never offered food to his ancestors. Why? Because he didn't know what was his ancestral lineage and so on. And Karna had to return to earth for 15 days and perform Shraddha during this Pitru Paksha. Like that, there is a story in the Anushasana Parva as well, right? Where typically a Sankalpa is taken and invocation is offered, Pinda and Dharba grass, Tarpana with black sesame seeds and water. And then Annadhana that day is offered to either, Supatra Brahmanas or to needy persons. Annadhana is offered, Dakshina and blessings are all given to various Supatras. So this is what happens in this period, as we all know well. And other than this, there are the Shodasha Samskaras in the Indian tradition. The Shodasha Samskaras, where did they originate from? If you see, we see them in the Grihya Sutras. Later in the Smritis, the Shrutis, we see them in the Grihya Sutras. Grihya Sutras are part of the Kalpa Sutras, which are part of the Shad Vedangas, right? So, in fact, in the Grihya Sutras, part of Grihya Sutras is Shulba Sutras that we have seen earlier. So, Manusmriti, that is completely based on the Vedic Pramana. Veda is the Pramana. We see this, right? Garbair Homer Jata Karma Chodamaunje Chudamaunji bandhanaisthatha bhautikam garbhikam chaiva dvijanam apamarjyate. So we see that, there is a certain, in there, this verse, it says that from the birth, from the conception of the fetus, from the intent to conceive, in fact, that is what it means. Garbhaihi, from the origin of where conception can happen in itself, to birth, tonsure, and the upanayana, then the vaijaka, this is the where we create. After that, we become, someone who Supatra and Garbhika, all these, that the taint of what this birth is, the kind of rina that we have, the material rina that we have of having been a Garbhaja, having been born out of the Garbha, Yonija. When we take the Upanayana, that particular dosha is removed. Thereby, you're not bound tightly to the entire dependency on your parents alone, and then you move on to become someone who is capable, that is far beyond becoming a dependent. Thereby, the taint is removed. And this verse, it shows how to purify the congenital and inherited impurities. And through Vedic knowledge, you can even cure your inherited impurities. That is how Manusmriti goes on to explain many of these facets. We see that these samskaras, right? I have already spoken of the etymology. Sam plus kru plus gai, that is samskara. It means refinement or sometimes even consecration. They shape, someone who is uncultured into a dharmic person. Dvija means born again. That's what Dvija means, or born twice. Right? Born for the second time. Right? So now you get a kind of a new breath of birth, and it empowers you in a particular way to act dharmically. Till then, you are a very dependent. Till the Upanayana karma. From there, it defines many things, and the authorities for these are the Dharma Sutras, the Smritis, especially the Grihya Sutras as part of the Vedangas. They define all the procedures for all these Shodasha Samskaras, and Manu's Smriti, Yajnavalkya Smriti, all these, they state their necessity, context, significance, and the ill effects of not following them, and so on. Tatparya that we see both in the Vedic literature and also in the adjacent literature, such as the Dharma Sutras and Smriti Vakyas, we see that the samskaras allow us, right, the Vyakti, the Vyakta Rupa Swarupa, to become the Avyakta Purusha, to the Rita, to the cosmic order, to become one with the natural cosmic order of evolution. That's the goal that is set. And we see that with every transition, there is a great psychological shift that also happens. For want of a better word, I put psychological, but it's the antarkarana. The antarkarana that transitions every time when we go through one among these samskaras. From the birth to the first time we take food, to the education, to marriage, and up to death, right? Every transition is considered a transition of the antarkarana, not only the bahir karana. And that antarkarana is, every stage in which a new identity is taken up, it is marked, sanctified, and socially validated as well. So these are all the main roles of the samskaras. In that, already I think Ma has covered 2-3. See, the Garbhadhana Samskara is the conception ritual. It is the very intent to conceive in itself. It is performed before conception by parents. So it invokes the divine blessings, and one hopes that one purifies one's own intentions, ensures our mental and physical readiness for the role that one has to play after this. It is seen as the first step in shaping the future generation of their kula, right? And what happens, you will see in the Grihya Sutras that yad guhyam hridaye tava prajapatavadhi Pratishtanam. They say, what lies hidden in the heart, which has been established by the Prajapati, the foundational role that you want your kula or your praja to grow. Maybe not suffer distress from such a kula. Mahaputrehi asya dukkitaha syam. The prayer is that this hidden, what is lying in the heart, which is established by Prajapati, the impelling factor within ourselves to create and procreate, may we not suffer this process. It's a very important prayer, right? When you don't chant these mantras, nowadays, this is a very, very important rule for parenting. What do I know about them? In fact, so the Shodasha Samskaras, I am no good person to talk about them. I've bypassed all of them to something else, to the Sannyasa Ashrama. However, owing to Guru Ajna, the Acharya role that one has to play, one has to anyways learn all the details of the Karma Kanda as well and then present it for clarity. However, you may all be much more experienced than me in any of these roles that I'm about to explain. So whatever limited viewpoints that I may have, please forgive me. Only through a Shastric lens, we will see many of these aspects. What we see is that the right Ritu Kala has to be first identified for this. The entire understanding of this, look at how refined this is. We are talking about a new role that one has to play. First, we do a Prajapati Homa, we do a Ganesha Homa, we do a Prajapati Homa, and then we fix a sacred time. From when on, we will intend and we will strive for the right conception to happen. So first, we look at the Anahata. First, the Anahata is first said with the above mantra, invoking Prajapati, and the very act of conception itself is considered very sacred. Right? And it is not a random act of impulse in the Indian tradition. And it marks the start of life's journey. It ensures that this is completely dharmically aligned and not mere a biological urge. This is the foremost of understanding in the Indian tradition. Whatever we do it towards dharma, artha, kama, moksha, towards sustaining dharma first, and then taking forward artha, kama, and moksha through this pathway. And it connects the gotra to the divine will of the Prajapati, who is the impelling factor, who is governing the governing intelligence behind creation, and the role that he has taken up in as per the appointments at different kalpas, different people take up that role. And that role, may that divine intelligence, may that entity may ensure that the correct lineage happens. In fact, in lineages, it is considered, from what we understand from various gurus, it is considered that why we, three birds before, the three pitrus before, they come again and again in this kula, and then again take birth until refinement and movement away from this loka happens towards the higher 7 lokas. And it dignifies the very process of reproduction, embedding it core to the dharma. It provides the right intention. Intention is everything. Yad bhavayati tad bhavati. How you intend a particular, how do you approach a knowledge system? How do you approach every single action? Your intention must be the first and foremost sanctified. Thereby it reduces the anxiety, it affirms the family bonds, and currently, if you look at the modern parallels, planned conception, prenatal care, all these are already, sort of well, embedded, towards some among the ancient dharmic traditions that we follow. The second, yes, DCG, please.
Dhanyawada. This is amazing what you're saying. Not to interrupt the flow, but you mentioned the Gotra to divine will of Prajapati, right?
Yeah.
Can you explain a bit more about, does this still apply in this age? Because I'm struggling to kind of um, have the same thought process. And then you also mentioned about Kula, right? Um, I don't know how to apply this in this period we are in, because nobody is respecting, or they don't want to follow this because there's a methodology that we've been following for ages. People are just disregarding and not really following it. So, not just for my personal, obviously, I'm going to be following this, but for younger generations to understand, I'm trying to understand like how I can actually be the medium to kind of take this on forward.
The foundational difference, what has happened because of the Yuga Niyati, whatever Arjuna feared has happened. Arjuna feared in the Arjuna Vishada Yoga that, oh, Varnashrama Sankramana will happen, which is what is the Niyati of the Yuga. It has had to happen. So there was no stopping it. But if you look at an earlier time, where the Kula, the way the strong Kula that you want have, that will ensure your definite success in life, because dharma, artha, kama, moksha are completely Kula centric. Your acharya is Kula centric, your guru is Kula centric, your particular way of life and the kind of occupation that you may engage in for the rest of your life is Kula centric. Thereby, the right gotra, you need the right swabhava in the lineage to continue what this gotra. In fact, this gotra in itself, the tra suffix, is that which liberates this entire lineage, that which helps this lineage to complete satisfaction and arrive at some completion. Right? There is, this kind of completion in action is what was aspired for by any lineage, and that, for it to prosper, we always attribute anything that we see around us, adrishya, to a divine intelligence. We can't really say we grew a plant, can we? We can set the ground conditions right. We can do the necessary steps. However, it's the divine intelligence in it that helps it come to fruition. So too, the impeller of the earth, if you know, we have deified it. The deity for it is Pravaha, when we saw in the astronomy classes, right? So we look at every divine intelligence, we personify it, we make it someone who we can interact with, we can definitely work interface with, right? So that way, the divine will of Praja comes from Prajapati himself, thereby connecting to him to ensure that orderliness in the Gotra, for someone with the right Swabhava to come up, to pick up, because there was always possibility for you to not pick up the Gotra's Dharma. So all this are the prayers at that point in time to relate to the current times. So even now, there are so many random aspects when it comes to the Garbha Samskara that around the world, there has been quite a bit of stress around this, quite a bit of challenge that different people go through. The very fact that some families haven't gone through challenge talks to their Purva Samskaras, talks to their upbringing, and so on. So this is something that if we sort of juxtapose everything of these 16 samskaras as are we doing it now, how do we re-bring it back? I don't think that's going to be quite easy unless and until you're going to closely work with the matha in your life, you're going to be dedicated to a guru, you work along a kula, because all that has right now vanished. Your kula devata, your kula guru, you might have to adopt to a kula guru and then look at adopting a particular way of lifestyle that's personally guided by that guru. That is the safest for this yuga that we are in. However, we must also understand the nuanced, tatparya in many of these designs, and to the best possible extent. Even if I now teach the Shodasho Upachara, the 16 puja vidhis, there is also the Manasika puja vidhi on top of it. Like that, we can do a Manasika samskara whenever possible. And whenever my own Purvashrama cousin had a huge debate at home if we must actually do the ear piercing samskaras. So these kinds of confusions, when it happens with the younger generation, it becomes What can be retained, we try to retain. But at the same point in time, we need to understand the principles. We need to act upon the principles and actively seek a guru. I feel a guru is the solution for this yoga.
Thank you, Ji. One additional question is that if seems like Gotra is the basis for Nakshatra Vidya, that's also not being followed. If Gotra is not being followed, right? That's one thought I had. But obviously, going through the Gurukula tradition is already been challenging.
So here Gam plus Train is Gotra. So Gam means Bhumitrayeta. So according to the situation on the Bhumi, let us say, according to the circumstances of the Bhumi, what kind of species are allowed, what kind of intelligences are allowed to blossom here, and so on. Palena, to protect that kind of a species and that kind of capabilities that we might have, is literally Gotra, actually speaking. But then later it became Akhyayam Namani Tatha Gotra. It became the name. The name in itself became the Gotra. But however, it is the, let us say, it's the, when we talk about family, we are talking about kinship. We are talking about continuity. And that is what Gotra has come to sort of stand for. Continuity in action. Yes. So the other, the second one is the Pumsavana. So Pumsa Linga generally means male, right? So many understanding, the Western scholarly understanding of this Pumsavanas is the Samskara done to have a progeny, a male progeny that has been, which is not really the right way to understand this. We will see. However, in many other places, such interpretations are there, not really wrong. But there is also a larger principle behind this. It's about ensuring vitality, longevity, and the strength of the child and the virya of the child. This is the time then when prayers are offered for protection and prosper, for the proper growth of the fetus. In fact, when you see, we will see in the some more points. You will see some among the very important aspects, right? So what do they say? The Grihya Sutras will tell us that having crushed in water sprouts, the sprouts of the banyan tree. So what we give it to drink, right? And through the right nostril, right? Like that, there has been no one, hardly we see anyone following this. It's performed in the third month, right? It's right before fetal movement. Though the gender of the embryo, of the gender of the entire fetus is determined at the time when, at the very point of genesis. However, later the gonads, which must form well, right, according to the gender, happens at the 7th week onwards, mainly in the 8th to 12th weeks. So in the third month, you will see that the right gender formation must happen. Otherwise, Napumsa can become the outcome of this particular period. So carefully, this is also considered as one among the samskaras, where the ability for the right fetal movement to happen, the right nourishment to be provided, and the right formation, the gonads in the child to form well according to the particular linga, particular gender that the child must be born into. That is the main understanding of this. And it also begins and marks a time when the pati starts caring for the patni. And so this is also drinking through the right nostril, which has a lot of yogic understanding about how it must be done, how the entire particular nadis through the right nostrils must be cleared. The ida through the right nostril must get cleared. So all this are embedded into some among these. The right mantras for them are all presented in the Rig Veda and the Hiranyagarbha Sukta and so on. Traditionally, it is intended to beget a strong, virtuous child, though some texts, as I have said, might mention male higher. More broadly, it strengthens the fetus and invokes a cosmic embryo imaginary, because it's the Hiranyagarbha Sukta, right? So Hiranya, the golden Garbha. So how formation happened in the beginning, microcosmically, it is understood that it is happening within the embryo as well, that the entire evolution is happening there. So that imagery is brought forth, and it reinforces, of course, a very shared responsibility between the parents in this process. It empowers mother with more communal care, right, and reducing isolation, where now people have to start caring for her. And this ritualized care, it will, even modern science, shows that it when there is a ritualized care, it leads to lesser maternal stress and more support for fetal development. This is the Pumsavana Samskara. Yes, DCG.
Hiranya Garbha and Hiranya Shradham, is there a correlation or any connection?
Hiranya Garbha, and what was the second word you were asking?
Hiranya Shradham, that happens during this
period?
No.
Hiranya Shardha, so is the Hiranya there means gold. Okay. So Hiranya Shardham is offering various materials like gold, silver, like that during the Shradha. Hiranya Garbha is different from the. The next, the next one, I think largely still in vogue and still in practice, is the Simantonayana, which is the always women's hair in the traditional sense are parted, but here there is a parting of the hair ritual that happens, and the kunkuma is applied. Mantras for peace, health, and protection of the mother are all chanted. Again, a large community support comes, easing the emotional stress. The symbol of collective responsibility for the new life that we see in the Simantonayana. Again, we see the Grihya Sutras for these, with specific instructions on Darba, and even the hairs of porcupine here really means the needle, the stick out of the porcupine that is used to comb the hair and then part it upwards by chanting the Vyakritis, the Bhur Bhuva Swaha, right? And then the earlier invocation of the Saptapadi that had happened during the Vivaha is reiterated here. And the mantras all say, like the rich in sap is this tree, like this tree rich in sap, you also be very fruitful, is what they say from the Udumbara tree, right? It is performed usually on the 6th or 8th month of the pregnancy. I think nowadays it's in the 3rd trimester largely. And the entire ritual involves the Patni sitting facing west, and the Pati is right behind her. The husband parts her hair upwards with Udumbara fruits, Darba grass, and the porcupine quill. That's how it usually happens. He recites the Mahavyakritis. Then he ties the fruits and the grass to her hair with the blessings, and then feasts and gifts are all presented in this period. And it is considered that it protects the mother and fetus from any evil influences and any negative thinking. The nurturing of the sap and vitality, they are all symbolic understanding of fertility and the wish for the fertility. And today it has socially become like a baby shower or a community support with gifts and joy. And it still survives, right? As Simandam, Valegap, Godbharai, all these different forms in which it is there. And even modern studies show us that in 3rd semester, doing this, there is always maternal stress. And you're going to see that many of these samskaras help reduce this. And a healthier fetal brain development is also considered that this period might bring in. Then comes the actual birth ceremony. It's performed immediately after the child's birth. It welcomes the baby with sacred sounds and bells, honey and ghee. They touch the lip, symbolizing sweetness, and affirms the child as a gift of divine grace. Again, very clearly, this all comes from our Grihya Sutras. The father is supposed to feed honey and ghee from a golden vessel. May Savitar give you intelligence. Medham te devaha savita dhadatu. He says, Medam Devi Saraswati. Medam te Ashwino Deva Adattam. So, Devau Adattam. That's typo here, not Deva. Devau Adattam. Because Ashwino Devau. So, maybe Ashwini Kumaras who are the responsible divine intelligence for health and well-being. May they bless you with intelligence. May Saraswati bless you with intelligence. May Savitar, the Surya, bless you with intelligence. All these are the mantras that are chanted at that point in time when using the ring finger. The father touches the lips of the newborn child with honey and ghee, and he whispers the Meda Janana mantras in both the ears. He touches the shoulders with protective verses, kavachas, and sometimes includes prana and ayu mantra for vitality as well. This is the celebration where we welcome the Jivatma into the embodied life. It awakens intellect and speech, two great human faculties. In fact, this must be done even before the cutting of the umbilical cord, and it invokes various deities with with a prayer for great intelligence, and it positions the very birth of the child within the Vedic family system from the very first birth. The very first birth, right at the birth, Vedic mantras is what the child hears. A touch and gentle auditory simulation support neonatal neurological development. Similarly, honey was symbolic, but also it is considered antimicrobial, though today not given due to infant safety. Many regulations, doctors and hospitals, they ask you to stop you from doing this in the hospital. So most times it's done after bringing back to the home, sadly. But however, these were all some among the traditional best practices that we have done for a long time. Then comes the Namakarana ceremony. Namakarana is the naming ceremony. What a very intelligent way to design, right? Now we are going to give an identity to this child. And this is a ceremony. This is a samskara. This is a way to refine the antarkarana and the bahirkarana. And it is largely, done in great consultation with the Kula Acharya, the Kula Devata, as per the family tradition, as per the astrological significance. It symbolizes entry into the social identity and cultural belonging. It invokes divine qualities through the chosen name, because that's your chosen identity. So, what happens then? What does the Grihya Sutra say regarding naming of the child? The name should begin with a voiced consonant, right? Definitely not X, right? It's not a voiced consonant, right? So the second syllable must be nasal and it should end in a visarga, right? This is the number of syllables should be even for males and odd for females. Like that, these are all some among the Grihya Sutras recommendations, for naming of a child. Now it's conducted largely on the 10th or the 12th day after the birth, right? Others, they choose up to, other schools of thoughts are there. Different Dharma Shastras say up to 41st day it's allowed, in fact, in many traditions. So the nakshatra especially is considered, right, in choosing the name. We see, right, even when we look at some among the royal lineages in Kerala, right, we see the nakshatra names, right? So Swati Tirunal. This is the name ends with Swati Tirunal. Tirunal means sacred day. So born on the Swati Nakshatra, the sacred day of Swati Nakshatra. Like that, if you see all the names of the Travancore, the Trivandrum royal lineage, you will see them, having this kind of a nakshatra name affixed to their name in itself. Child is formally named in the presence of family and society. A Guhya name is also provided, Nama, for the Acharya alone to use, and it is used later at the Upanayana traditionally. Similarly, the nakshatra and the gotra, the name must link to it, and it's a symbolic entry into the community through the recognition, and the name carries the identity, right? The vibrational energy, how it is said, how is one called, how is one addressed, that creates a certain identity for the child. A very, very important step. Thankfully, many Indians and well-meaning Indians are waking up to this fact. A lot of books presented by various scholars, right, on some among the naming methods and what are possible names that you can choose from, right? And that is the root of the identity, and it preserves continuity of traditions and gotra. And the personal identity begins from being called, he is called Akhyaha, Shivakhyaha, then becomes he's called Akyaha, he's named as, therefore, like this, right? So from there, the personal identity begins, and the language acquisition, memory, the concept of the self, right? That this is the self. This is how, the name helps you, solidify your identity. It is said that children, babies, do not have a clear identity, for some time, so that by calling them names, then the identity or this concept of the self becomes etched in them. The first outing of the child, right, is considered the Nishkramana Samskara. Right, they are taken either to the temple under the sun in the open sky, where they are exposed to the Pancha Bhutas, in the temple lake, to the water, to the wind, to the Akash, all the Pancha Bhutas they are exposed to, and it symbolizes, the entry into the wider world beyond the family walls alone, and seeking, the right time adaptability even in one's microbial constituency. So we see that in the 4th month, the child is typically taken out of the house for the first time. Chaturthe masi nishkramayati suryam pashyati. So the child is taken out, he or she is taken out 4th month. Sometimes it's in the 3rd or 6th month, depending on the schools that you belong to, depending on the kulas and the acharyas that you belong to. The father is the one who carries the child outdoors, typically to witness the sunrise. Similarly, in the same day, the moon rise and the moon is also shown. The sun is also shown. Adityam pashyati. Like that, various mantras are all said. Chandram pashyati. So like that all, it is all said. And it's the first exposure to the cosmic cycles, the effects of the sun and the moon. The sun is said to affect the Atman and the moon is said to affect the Manas of the child. And it acknowledges that the world is beyond the home, and that one has to adapt to the world in itself, and it works blessings for a long life. I'm stating all this as per it's there in our smritis. These are my impact on this is contextualized to the current times. It is completely, all these aspects are all drawn from the smritis and the shrutis, based on which we are presenting these. Similarly, the child is, when one gets more exposure to nature and the society, it expands the sensory world, world of the child. It fosters more curiosity, definitely, right? And definitely the healthy circadian rhythm, and that eyes development, vitamin D synthesis, and then so on. Then comes the Annaprashana, the first feeding of solid food for the child. It's performed around 6 months of age. First tasting of cooked grains, usually rice, though it may differ from region to region. Ritual prayer for strength, growth, and health. It marks a shift from milk to solid food and the society's nourishment. For that also, the Grigya Sutra says in the 6th month, Shashte Masi Annaprashnam. So you'll have to do the feeding of the food, right? That time you say Annasyatva Patir Annapatenam Asi Annam Adehi Me Prajayate Twopaji Tvopajiveyam. All this is said during this time, and the idea is that Bhagavan, you are the giver of food, right? Annapatehe Tvam. You are the Annapate. You are the food itself. Annamasi, you are the food in itself. Similarly, Annam Adehi. You give me food for the offspring, that I may live upon thee. Prajayi Tvo Pajiveyam. May you, enshrine in the child. So it's performed around the 6th month, varies 6 to 8 months in different traditions. The father is supposed to prepare the rice with ghee, honey, or curd, and it feeds small morsels, right, to the food with these mantras. So it depends, as I said, from region to region. There, milk rice is given, Kshira in Bengal, Kerala Payasa is given. Other regions, some curd rice, rice with ghee or fruits. Right. Also, a great family feast is organized with gifts to the children. Right. It introduces child to Anna, and this is regarded as the The child is regarded as the Brahman. The Brahman in itself, it symbolizes growth, strength and continuity of the lineage. So we see this even with WHO, that's the recommended weaning period. After 6 months, some solid food at this stage, it supports the required iron requirements and healthy growth is what we see. And we have intuited upon this earlier in itself. Then comes the Chuda Karana, the tonsuring of the head. So this is shaving of the child's first hair. It removes the birth-related impurities and the past karmic impressions, symbolizes a new beginning and the freshness of the mind. We again see, again the Grihya Sutras tell us all this, right? So the hair should be shaved, in fact, by the father, and the razor with which Savitri shaved, with that I release thee. Okay, it means that from the way in which Surya has cut your Santatam and given you a new identity, with that I release thee. So it's usually performed in 3rd or the 5th year, and in some traditions, hair is shaved with leaving a tuft or a shikha. In fact, the shikha in itself there can be variations. And offerings are made to Agni. The Agni Kriya is done at that point in time, or Agni Homa. Then the hair sometimes is consigned to water or buried in a sacred place or offered to a Devata. So again, there are different Grihya Sutras, as I said. Ashvalayana Grihya Sutra, Gobhila Grihya Sutra, they all say 3rd year. Gobhila says 1st or 3rd year. Smritis allow up to 7th year for this to happen. I said different regions, right? Tuft, the shikha can be in the back, the side, or the top. In some communities, at this point in time itself, Upanayana is also done. Very early Upanayana is also done in some communities. So all these are done, or Chuda Karna is transferred and done along with Upanayana at the age of 5 in some communities and so on. So Purva Karma Mala Rahitam. That's the main goal of this in the Indian tradition. So, and the retaining shikha is the retention of the prana at the Brahmarandra. This is considered where the suri, where you see the mark of the swirl, right? That's considered the Brahmarandra. That's considered Randra. Randra means a valve or like a nostril. Nostril is a valve, right? We have Navarandras in the body, 9 holes in the body, a valve, so to speak, to connect and interface. So this is considered as Brahmarandra, and to protect the prana shakti here, the shikha is maintained around the Brahmarandra. So it marks the boy's readiness for education. Similarly, for the girl, it is not kept. The shikha is in some traditions kept, some it is not kept. So many variations are there when it comes to girls. Then for some, there are some traditions where only in the side it is removed. Then like that, it teaches also a certain discipline to children. It changes their identity slightly, right? It brings in a more bodily awareness. All of a sudden, all these senses, nerve endings in the brain and in the skull region, start to all of a sudden get activated. There's much more humility that is to come. The sort of the proverbial wisdom here is that one becomes very naughty after that for a few days. But actually, the sutras all say that it's a mark of humility. And even today, we know that shaving the scalp from time to time, it exposes the scalp to sunlight and can stimulate vitamin D absorption. And the tuft possibly served as an early identity marker also. The identity marker as to where the swirl is. Where the swirl is matters, actually. So that gives the swabhava of the child, and accordingly, Acharya can decide. All this is also there. As I said, then the 9th ritual is Karna Veda. Long back, a little back, I told about the kind of dilemma that people have these days, ear piercing. Are we torturing a child? Is this right? Should we inflict harm on a child? All these kinds of arguments are going on. And it is strongly believed to aid the intellect and protect both balanced hemispherical growth in a child's neuronal development. It's also a cultural adornment. It's marking beauty and its tradition. It links the body through the subtle pranic channels, the Varma channels, the Marma channels, right? This is prescribed for both boys and girls. Okay, then this, again, mantras are also there that have come in the later texts. So may the gods hear through your ears. The Antar Karana, the Devatas within you, may they hear all that and reawaken within you. And the Vedas are all, taught to you. So again, typically third or fifth year, often together with Chuda Karna. These days they are Chuda Karna Samskara. They are doing this. And the right ear is pierced first for boys. The left is first pierced for girls. It is done with gold or silver needle, and the mantras are recited along with it. So Om Karnabhyam Te Shrunuhu Shravantu Devaha, all that is chanted along there. Similarly, in South India, as I said, it's largely done with Chuda. North India, it's largely a separate ritual, sometimes postponed until adolescence even. Among some traditions, it is done at temple premises. So we look at ears as the gateways of Shruti, and it marks the readiness to receive sacred knowledge. You look at children with beautiful ear piercings from a young age, shining bright, and a tejas is immediately associated with it. Young children are bullied even in some schools when they have Karna Veda. The way we educate them, the way we make them mentally strong, to go through all this and still stand by our tradition, will give early initiation into standing by the Dharma Shastras as well, undoubtedly. Of course, but they have to manage for some time. Traditionally, as I said in Ayurveda, the piercing of these marma points on ears, right, they actually control the reproductive and neuronal functions. It's considered that there are marma points here. Even if you look at the Chinese modern acupressure system, it points that near earlobes, they are used to calm the nervous system. When you go gently massage here, it's supposed to calm the nervous system, and piercing, it could have acted as a primitive auricular acupuncture, is what some among the modern studies now say regarding piercing, right? But however, even now, Agastya Maharishi has clearly shown us that you have to, hold the right ear with the left ear with the right hand, and the right ear with the left hand, and then do this pull up, sort of sit-ups, and that is considered something phenomenally improving your hemispherical balance and activating both the hemispheres of the brain. And traditionally, what happens in yesteryear schools, yesteryear gurukulas, the ears of the child are pulled to increase attention, not violently, but as a mark of increasing, having the manda buddhi to go away, mandatva to go away, and more attention to come. The well-known samskara right now is the Vidyaramba Samskara. Why? With education tightly, Artha has been tied into the society. Thereby, everyone wants the Vidyaramba to happen very, very well. And typically the parent holds the hand of the child and writes the first letters. They invoke goddess Saraswati, and they introduce discipline, respect for knowledge, and humility. And formal education begins from here. So in the early Grihya Sutras, Vidyaramba and Upanayana are not really separate. Vidyaramba and Upanayana happen together. Why? Because we don't have a very prominent written tradition. We have only a oral tradition largely, right? But later, regional traditions, seem to have come. Not long after, still in the, first millennia BC itself, this this ritual has come, the Vidyaramba ritual has come. So we see this in the Parashara Smriti belonging to the first millennia BC at least, right? Om Hari Shri Ganapataye Namaha is often written. Om Namas Siddham, Om Namas Saraswatyai. These are all chanted while all these, while this, samskara is done. And we see that it is performed around 5th year. The child is, sitting facing east and holds a stylus or finger is dipped in a turmeric paste. and the first are written on the rice or a sand. The first syllables are written either home or Harishri, or these are written. And the guru or the father recites the Saraswati invocation. Saraswati Namastubhyam Varade Kamarupini Vidyarambham Karishyami Siddhir Bhavatu Me Sada is recited. Then a systematic learning begins from there on. Learning outcomes start to come. And definitely, Sir Rasa, Devi gives us rasa into learning everything, right? And so the goddess of speech and wisdom is invoked, and it the foundational of our literacy in the Indian tradition. What happens? Also there are quite a few variations. Akshara Abhyasa on Vijay Dashami in South India. Kerala, there is a Vidyarambham festival in itself. In Bengal, Hathekari, the first writing happens. Basically, it connects education to sacredness, and it creates lifelong association of learning with auspiciousness, right? And it also creates memory anchors to a child with strong reinforcement of early education in the Indian tradition. Then comes the Upanayana, the sacred thread ceremony, as we all know. That's the initiation into the Brahmacharya life, where the Vidyarthi Pancha Lakshana kicks in. Student receives the Gayatri mantra from the Guru. Sacred thread is worn. A girdle is worn around the waist. It prepares for a life of study, service, and responsibility. Again, a lot of important texts have spoken in detail about this. Ideally, in the Vasanta Ritu for Brahmana, in the Grishma Ritu for Kshatriya, and the Sharad Ritu for Vaishya, Upanayana is done. And the Maunja grass girdle and a Palasha staff are given to a Brahmana. For the Kshatriya, bowstring girdle is given, and the Udumbara staff is given. Similarly, Vaishya wears a woolen girdle and a Bilva staff are given typically. And the Upanayana happens. Om Tat Savitur Varenyam Bhargo Devasya Dhimahi Yo Yonah Prachodayat. All that is said at this point in time. The complete, reverential invocation of Aditya Devata happens. The Savitur is happening here. Yes, Prasadji.
Namaste, Chaitanya ji. One quick question. Some of the caste doesn't have this Upanayana. So, and if someone wants to start that one, is it a good thing, or if you are belonging in a particular caste and and your forefathers doesn't have that Upanayana thing, and you want to start that, is it a good thing, or it's converting where you are not to belong to a certain thing, and you want to adopt that? Is it that considered as a dosha, or is it okay to go ahead?
Two ways to look at this, Prasadji. One is knowing that Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya from time immemorial have been actually doing. Somewhere it should have gotten cut if one belongs to any of these varnas. However, we should also go by what the gurus of the current yugas tell us. This is also very, very important. See, Adi Shankara Bhagavad-pada, after coming, he reformed and he presented reforms as in he did not correct a particular method. He did not say something earlier was wrong. He was trying to present a set of practices that are best suited for the current context. So too, we look at Upanayana as a ceremony of giving the Upadesha of the Veda Mahavakyas. One must understand the Tatparya of this. The Tatparya is to learn the Gayatri mantra by the Guru, to do Nitya Japa after that. It's not a ritual that one does and leaves. One has to then follow the necessary Samskaras after that. Nitya Japa. It helps. If Gayatri mantra helps in massive development of the neuronal capabilities. However, there are traditions which are very strongly, there are paramparas which strongly are not okay doing this for other other castes. And then there are various kulas and gurus who say that Savarna, now Varna Sangraha has happened in the current kula. There is nobody belonging to a particular Varna. Everyone is a Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya, Sudra themselves, because one has to know all these four skill sets to survive in the current yuga and to perform well and have fulfillment in this yuga. Based on such tarka, based on such vada, various traditions have come to our understanding that this kind of Upanayana can be done. Even then, sometimes some traditions give the Gayatri mantra, some give the Guru Gayatri mantra, a different Gayatri mantra in such occasions. Definitely, I would encourage, out of my own personal saying, I'm not saying this representing anyone, but I would definitely encourage Upanayana Samskara for children, because it index them into the Vedic mantra chanting, and index them into valuing the mantras, participating in japa, dhyana, dharana, and so on. This is a very, very important faculty. Even if it hasn't happened, it is okay. You definitely take mantropadesha from when different Guru Margal, when Guru Varyaha of different traditions offer different programs of mantropadesha. Definitely encourage children to go take it up. The idea of Upanayana is to definitely take up mantropadesha and follow mantra chanting in life, right? And live a life of brahmacharya. What are brahmacharya? So the brahmacharya qualities are also very well declared in the Indian tradition. If you see the Patanjali sutras, you will see the qualities of asteya, you will see self-control, you will see purity in thought and action, strong will and determination, aparigraha. So, like that, there, a list of qualities are all, said in the entire Yoga Sutras as what is brahmacharya. So, to follow that, to follow a period of education, we begin the Upanayana. In Upanayana, the Vidyarthi role comes. One's primary artha is Vidya, not Kama, not Bhoga, not Sukha. All this, Sukhartinaha nasti Vidya, Vidyartinaha nasti Sukha. So there is no concept of seeking anything else other than Vidya, which means you go to a Gurukula after this, learn with a Guru, you give away, become a Grihatyagi, you become a Alpa Ahari, you become Bakodhyanaha, Kakacheshtaha, Shwana Nidra. These qualities are all given. And the principle behind them is that after the Upanayana means what? Coming closer. It comes closer to the truth, to the Vedic roots, to the Vedantic truths in life. That's the essential principle. Once we know the principle, you look at the swabhava of the child. You look at if this would help the child. Then accordingly, you can make the decision. Regarding doshas, any karma has dosha. Let us be very, very clear about this. Anything, and in a time when it's full of confusion and a complete amalgamation of all rituals, right? Have clarity in your mind. Have drida sankalpa. Based on your drida sankalpa and your drida chintana, you can make a decision. Always seek a guru in your life. Consult the guru. This is my only wisdom to say with respect to this yuga's proceedings. Hope this.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Yeah, it clarified my doubt.
Thank you. So the Brahmopadesha happens in this process, and then Bhiksha is asked. Bhiksham Dehi. The brahmachari asks, and the parents give the first Bhiksha, and you are supposed to get Bhiksha and then study on alms and live an austere life following this. Now what happens? You do Upanayana and we sort of fizzle out on the principles of what this Upanayana is for. So it transforms us into a Dvija to move away from the strong karmic binding of the Kula alone, enters the Brahmacharya ashrama and marks Vedic learning. Gayatri imparts the vision of light and knowledge for the children who undergo this. Again, various variations. Dharma Sutras vary up to what is the max limit of age, 16, 22, 24. Are the max limits according to different Dharma Sutras. Girls, also Upanayana was done in the Vedic age, which is also very clear from the Vedic text. If it was missed in the Vivaha, before the Vivaha, at least Sadhyo Vadhu is done. Where there is Upanayana happening before the marriage for the girl, and it somehow has later gotten discontinued, mainly because later I think going around asking Bhiksha, traveling, and all that, because of various kind of alien forces and the kind of either that we had to protect ourselves from. All these steps had to be taken. There is always time. If that was revised, again it can be re-revised, right? All this is open. That's why why do mathas work even now? The mathas and the gurus of various mathas are the ones who give out the dharma sutras, dharma shastras as per the current times and accordingly accommodate various needs. People said that earlier, women, because of this, women were cut off from Vedas and they couldn't learn the Vedantas and so on. Then later, Swami like Dayananda Saraswati, who himself is very, very traditional, he started teaching Vedanta and the Upanishads, chanting for all, Indians, non-Indians, this gender, that gender, nothing, like that. When some among the great Tattvadarshis, when they show us the way, we accordingly adapt and then find peace and take everything as an opportunity to grow, rather than becoming lawyers in a court of dharma law and then debating endlessly what is right and wrong without having tattva darshana. So we leave it to the tattva darshis to debate, and with whom you have shraddha, one can follow that. It's a very, very important thing, I feel, that daily Sandhya Vandana practices and the pranayama and the mantra recitation that we do, that's the main outcome of having done this Upanayana Samskara, having done this, that must be kept up. Having done this, that will support cognitive development and emotional regulation in a child. Then comes the Vedarambha, right? It happens after Upanayana. It's a formal start of Vedic recitation and spiritual study, and it happens, not always separated in the earlier text, but it happens in the next day or so. But later it became as a separate ritual itself, because immediately you can't pack and leave home sometime to go to the Gurukula. Later you had to move, so there was a tithi and auspicious, everything thought through according to the ritus and so on. So it later got separated as a separate idu itself. Otherwise, the next day would have gone with the Guru, and Vedarambha ritual would have happened at the Gurukula. Taitriya Aranyaka, it prescribes the various Vyagritis along with the Gayatri during the initiation, what must be done for the Vedarambha, for the Adhyayana to begin from there on. And similarly, it's, once we have settled into the Gurukula, it starts, right? And the first Vedic verse, which is usually Gayatri or the Agnim Ile Purohitam. So the first Agrim Ide Purohitam, the first verse of Rigveda, it starts from there. And then the daily recitation schedule, the Adhyayana, Anadhyayana rules, all that kick in from the Vedarambha time. So mainly Shravana and Adhyayana are the two aspects that happens. It's rooted in the oral transmission. There's Shruti Parampara, and it's Shakha based, your own Shakha, what it is. According to it, the different suktas are all taught to children. And in some traditions, it is merged, as I said, with Upanayana. And it ensures Vedic continuity through oral memory. And it works on memory, neuroplasticity, birth control, improves concentration, improves discipline, sitting in the same asana, unmoving, chanting, controlling your urges, your urge for food, your urge for rest, your tendencies for rest, food, urge, and all that bit. Biological urges like going to the bathroom, everything is controlled, in this Veda chanting period. Then in some specific Griya Sutras alone, there is the Keshanta, the first shaving and charity, where the beard and all that is shaved, and Godhana happens at that point in time. Youthful stage is reached at that point in time, readiness for the next life. So in some places it is said, but after that, mainly the Samavarthana, the completion of the period of study happens. The graduation ceremony happens. This ceremony marks the completion of education under the Guru. They seek blessings to return home. One is declared fit for a householder life, for worldly duties, and transition from a student discipline to social responsibility happens at this phase. Right? It consists of the ceremonial bath and all that is there to be performed after the completion of Vedic study. He takes the Snataka to mark purification. Guru gives final instructions, the Snataka Dharma, what are the rules of a householder, how should you conduct yourself, all that are said. a dakshina is offered by the student. Then they return home, ready to enter the next stage of life, the grihastha ashrama. So it concludes the brahmacharya ashrama time. So there is always a vrata period and there is a celebration period. So once the vrata is over, then you have a more disciplined way of living your life after that. It marks transition from to a responsible adult, right? It creates a certain social status also for you as an eligible person right now, ready to enter the next state of the life, to enter a sacrificial life, right? When we talk about vivaha, it's a sacrificial life. It's a life when you sacrifice towards the well-being of the others, to your own pati or patni and to the progeny that is to come. It's all sacrifice, tyaga eva. So towards that you must get ready, right? So some people, they merge the samavartana with vivaha itself, the rituals to be done. Then the simple, the Dharma Sutras are all prescribing the rules for how the bath should happen, right? And similarly, the Snataka rules after the Snataka Upadesha, after that, it teaches us modesty, discipline, and avoidance of excess in life. It teaches us that. So this is a transitional rite. So the identity now has expanded. You become civic responsibility, family responsibility. These are all your thought processes right now. So till then, you're free of these thought processes. Imagine, what a kind of a beautiful childhood that would have been, right? And then the discipline of studenthood, followed by closure of rituals, is akin to the current graduation ceremony, where people acknowledge your knowledge in itself, right? It's critical for our identity formation and motivation in life as well. Then what all here are experts in, I'm sure, and this is some samskara that we would have all gone in great detail here, and so you might know more details about this certainly. And the grihastha ashrama is the entering a griha and keeping a griha, devata, griha agni, griha, the materials needed for a griha, all that comes as part of this ashrama life. It's the foundation for family, dharma, and society, to ensure continuity of the tradition and support for various generations. Sacred partnership for spiritual and social growth. So in the Indian tradition, there are Ashtavida Vivahas, right? Then we see that there is mainly the Saka Saptapadi, the Saptapadi steps are there, the Saptapadi mantras are there, and these are all the main aspects of the Vivaha. If you look at traditionally, if you see the Vivaha, if you look at the Dharma Shastras, there is the Brahma Vivaha, Daiva Vivaha, Arsha Vivaha. So giving daughter to a Vedic scholar after adorning her without any expectation of dowry. Who will give dowry? So this is the other way, right? When there is no expectation of dowry, that is considered the highest form. And the Daiva Vivaha, where a priest officiating a sacrifice makes the marriage happen. Then there is the Arsha Vivaha, right? So marriage with symbolic bride price, with a cow, bull given to the bride's family, right? So it's a symbolic marriage. Then there is the Prajapatya Vivaha. This is where the bride is given with the blessings like, may you both together perform dharma, by simply announcing it. Now I announce you, that is Prajapatya. So then Asura Vivaha is marriage through wealth given by the groom to the bride's family. Groom will basically buy a girl. That is what this Asuri Vivaha is. Then Gandharva Vivaha, love marriage, mutual consent, nobody in place. We just both of them declare each other to be married. Then the Rakshasa Vivaha, where one is abducted and out of risk, though with family resistance and often a violent wedding basis. Then the Paishacha Vivaha, the lowest form, involving seduction or violation of a sleeping or unwilling woman, right? Through many of these are considered to be 8 Vivahas. And clearly, only 4 are recommended later by the Smritis, and it's sanctified greatly. This is a process that's considered very, 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 very sacred in the Hindu Dharma, because the Smritis, the Manusmriti, the Yajnavalkya Smriti, they worked hard in making this to be the sacrosanct aspect of the Hindu Dharma. The Kanya Dana is given of the bride, Because why is this considered Kanya Dana? Because the progeny cannot happen for any Kula without a Kanya, and we beg for a apt Kanya to come into the Kula, and so we beg for it, and thereby we receive that as a Dana from someone. And then the Mangala rituals, anointing, blessings, all that happens, and the Saptapadi are taken, and then around the 7 steps are taken around the fire, and Dhruvatara Darshana happens, right? So it can be the polar star. Later, Maharishi Shvetaketu, he revised this, and then he said we should look at Vasishtha Arundhati as the stars to be looked at as the model stars. Similarly, it is, they are at the completion of which both are acknowledged as Dampati, where they are Saha Dharma Charinav, right? So that's how they are identified as. It's the most elaborate samskara. It establishes the Grihastha which is the backbone of Dharmic society, and it itself is a very big yajna. A lot of sacrifice is done. They become co-partners in yajna, offering towards each other, in dharma towards each other, artha towards each other, and kama towards each other. This first step, is taken in the Saptapati, is, mainly for Ishti, right? We see these Saptapati steps, and the main mantras are to mainly say that for the sake of food, for strength, for fulfillment of our vows, for happiness, for Pashu, for our progeny and animals, for all the Ritus to come, for Sakhya Bhava, all these, the 7 steps are taken. And as I said, only the first 4 are approved by Manu, and there are very different regional differences in India when it comes to Sindur, Mangal Sutra, the kind of sutra itself, Kanyadana plus Saptapadi, a lot of, quite a bit of differences. There is no single way to ever write about Vivaha Dharma. A lot of diversity in it. There are, even the mantras are quite varying across various traditions and so on. And the main idea is that it ensures continuity, and of course gives a lot of social emotional stability for life, and it involves vows, living with that ekapatni vrata, and community witnessing for this vow that you have taken up, the sankalpa. Then symbolic bonding, similar to the modern psychological emphasis on public commitment to enhance stability for anything that we take up. And then life continues through all these samskaras for your child. And after that comes the Vanaprastha Pravesha Samskara. See, this Manusmriti says that when a householder sees his skin is wrinkled, his hair is white, and the sons of his sons have, come, and then he should retire into the forest with a firm resolve. Gachet Samahitaha. So having entrusted the care of his sons and grandsons to them, the householder may become a forest dweller intent on purification of his body. So further samskara, further refinement to happen. So typically Manusmriti says you must live in a forest subsisting on roots, fruits and shoots, herbs. So then you have to wear Valkalaihi Stvandvakulaihi, Valkala barks or skins, to be your garments. Thereby you are not going to wash them every day, etc. Then you let the hair, beard and nails all grow. There is no beautification. Then you perform Agnihotra with forest products, whatever is available. Then you practice the austerities of Vrata Bandha Samskaras, the fasting, silence, celibacy, all this you proper. The emphasis on Sharirasya Shuddhayate. There's a typo there. This is the emphasis there. That's the purification of the body, meaning preparing the body and mind for the final stages of the sannyasa, right? Or death, whichever is to come. When one's children are settled, we withdraw from all household duties. Simple fire offering and vows of austerity we follow. Then we shift to Vanaprastha forest life, meditation and tapasya. So transitioning from Artha Kama pursuit to Moksha pursuit in your life, this marks gradual detachment from your worldly ties. It prepares us for sannyasa, renunciation. Of course, Different schools omit as a formal samskara and see it as a lifestyle shift. In practice, many move directly from household to sannyasa as well without vanaprastha ashrama. Then maintains balance of ashrama system, encourages letting go, it reduces anxiety about old age, and even parallels to modern gerontology. If you see retirement with spiritual focus, it improves our mental health, lowers stress, and enhances longevity. That comes as our time comes to conclusion, our life too comes to conclusion, and antyeshti, the antima samskaras are done. Antye ishti, antyeshti. So the final rites are performed, right? And it's ensuring the journey of the Jivatma to the higher realms. So the families are mainly offer prayers for the moksha, the repeated cycles of births and death. May we have moksha from, may we ascend to higher lokas. This is the kind of prayers that we have. From the Rig Veda times, we see all these present, these mantras are all chanted, right? Let the Pitruloka receive him, like that all. There are mantras that are chanted. Then, while Yama is near someone, we also pray that do not come and harm any of our children. Let the right time come for them. You do not come to them. You have taken one person to your loka, be with it. Like that, all Kavacha mantras are said. Right? If you see at the time of the death, what are the typical prescriptions? So the dying person is placed on the dharba grass, usually the head facing the east or north. Then we recite sacred names or mantras so that in the dying moments they hear Ram Nam Eva Satya or the Gayatri mantra or the personal Ishta Devatas mantras or the Sahasranama mantras and so on. Then a few drops of Ganga water or Tulasi leaf are poured into the mouth. Then after that, the body is prepared. After the time of death, the body is prepared. We wash and anoint the body with ghee, sandalwood paste. Then we wrap the body in a clean cloth, often white for men and red or yellow for women. And we place a small quantity of sesame seeds or coin as a symbolic dakshina for them. Then they are either carried on a bamboo barrier by male relatives with chanting of the various important shlokas and namavalis, and then dahana samskara happens, or the daha samskara happens, where in the funeral pyre, the head facing south, the Yamaloka is in the southern direction. The eldest son, or the nearest male heir, they circle the pyre with a pot of water, then they break it, and then they cut all the worldly ties for that person. They light up the pyre and often use sacred fire from the household. In fact, you should have, one who was doing the Nitya Agni Hotra Agni. From that Agni, this has to be burnt. Similarly, mantras to the Agni are recited to carry the Jiva to the Pitruloka or the higher lokas. Then the Ashti Samgrahana, gathering of the ashes. Later it happens, put it in an earthen pot. They are immersed in holy waters. At local tirthas are Mahapunya tirthas. Then the Shraddha and the Pindadana are done at so first the 3rd, 10th and the 12th day rituals are performed. Then the Masika and the annual Tithi thereafter. The Masika Amavasya and the annual Tithi, when this has happened, the Shraddha Karya happens. The main significance is that it is understood from our shlokas that the body goes back to the Panchabhutas in itself, and the Jiva, it goes to the Pitruloka or higher lokas based on the sadhana of the person, and it provides a closure to all the families. Cremation is the most common, but in some traditions, especially the ascetics, burial is used because their tapobala is retained there, and texts describe Agni Dhana followed by 10-day Shraddha. It integrates death into a dharmic worldview. Grief ritual helps family cope with the loss and understand it that Punarapi Jaranam, Punarapi Maranam happens. Cremation prevents spread of contagion, and structured mourning reduces the psychological trauma in the family as well. So like this, we have gone through the 16 samskaras. And as we finish the 16 samskaras, one among the Upanishads has this beautiful shloka called Puranante Smashanante Prasavante cha yad bhavet Vairagyam tadridham chet syat taranti bhavasagaram. When we finish, hearing to a Mahapurana, or when prasava, the end of prasava, the pain of prasava when it ends, or smashanante, having done dahana of a close relative, that time when vairagya comes, what is this life? What am I running behind? That vairagyam tadridam chet syat haranti bhavasagaram. If you hold on to that vairagya firmly, that vairagya will take you across the bhavasagara of again and again births and deaths. This, our Tattvadarshis have presented various important aspects for us. And as we conclude all the samskaras, we also must feel a certain moment where we breathe a bit and then let go. So we'll close with a closing invocation. Om Loka Samasta Sukhino Bhavantu. Loka Samasta Sukhino Bhavantu. Loka Samasta Sukhino Bhavantu. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om. Thank you all.
Dhanyawadaha ji. Okay, I think we covered all the 16 samskaras in one session today. Thank you, ji. If you maybe can hang around here for a minute or so, and then we will wrap up. Does anyone have any questions for Swamiji?
I just want to thank you. This was 16, all 16 in one go was really good. I think there's a lot we learned. I learned for sure. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Definitely, I depart from Ma style. I usually I'm more like a marathon session, and but I'm sure I hope the principles I hope have clarified, though we have tried to cover a lot of ground, because many of these sessions, these are to be reflected throughout our lifetime to come. And as we follow these samskaras to the best extent possible, insights will flow through us when we see transformation happening in front of us, refinement happening in front of us.
So I have one question, Ji. So you mentioned about Grihya Sutras being part of Kalpa Sutras and so on.
Yeah.
When somebody says Dharma Shastra, is that a completely different body of work based on Grihya Sutras? Is that a different corpus? What or are Grihya Sutras themselves part of Dharma Shastras? How is that to be seen?
The Dharma Shastras, largely the Karma Kanda is the inspiration for the Dharma Shastras. But just like how Bharatiya Ganita from Vedic Ganita evolved into larger domains, under the same domain there were more texts, more diversifications, more specifications, more contextual applications according to the kula, the space where you are in, and so on. Though they draw from the sutras in themselves, the Grihya Sutras themselves, the Dharma Shastras are a broader framework. They involve the Shruti, Smriti, and later texts that various acharyas, the Madhvacharyas, the Shankaracharyas, the different acharyas have prescribed as well.
And when we say Karma Kanda, what is referred to? Is it the Vedic Karma Kandas or?
Yes. So the Grihya Sutras are all part of the Karma Kanda. Is about how do we perform effective actions. The Karma Kanda of the Vedas, what happens in the Kalpa to help you this Karma Kanda of the Vedas, the Veda Angas are the auxiliary texts. For example, the rituals that you have to perform, right, Ji? Towards that, you have the manuals, right? Like that, the Grihya Sutras are manuals. The Karma Kanda will say the Shodasha Samskaras must be performed. At least we saw the Rig Veda verses, right, for them.
Right.
So the Rig Vedas will say this, and then the manual for them will be put in the Veda Angas. in the
Okay.
Grihya Sutras. So you have to work with both of them, and then you have to use the mantras in the Karma Kanda to chant when the different samskaras happen.
Okay. Got it. Got it. Thank you, Ji.
The last verse you said, G, can you share that?
Yeah, I don't have a typed version. I only have it out of the memory, but I can find the verse and send it to G. Puranante shmashanante prasavante cha yad bhavet vairagyam tad dridham chet syat taranti bhava sagaram. I will try to track the source of this verse. It's been many years, so we'll try to track the source of the verse and then.
Dhanyawada.
Okay. All right. Let's wrap up. Sarve bhavantu